I'm about to give you the full roadmap from A to Z on how to scale a construction company to 10 million without working 80-hour work weeks or hiring 100 new employees. But first, I want you to understand something. This is the exact framework I use to triple revenue in my general contracting business, scale over a dozen contractors beyond 5 million, and lessons I learned by working inside a $100 million construction company. This is not some generic info from someone who has never run this business before. But in 2017, I was working 70-hour work weeks, stressed out. I hired coaches, I was managing my team, but my business just wasn't growing. Then I discovered how to scale a construction company the right way. And since then, I've helped multiple contractors scale beyond that 5 million mark, tripled revenue for one contractor, and doubled margins of a recent client in just 2 months. Now, most contractors think that you need a lot of resources to start scaling, but in reality, you grow your resources when you start scaling. So with that being said, we're going to cover the top strategies that scale construction companies beyond that 10 million mark, how to actually protect your margins as you scale, the correct way of building efficient systems that work while you sleep, and the biggest mistake that stops contractors from reaching 8 figures. So major myth holding a lot of contractors back is that you need a lot of time or a big marketing budget in order to scale. But I'm about to show you how to actually scale without any of these. The $10 million scaling framework. These are the 3 levers that actually scale a construction company. You don't need to add 100 new things. You scale by focusing on these 3 levers. So they're increasing your net margin, a good profit margin to be able to scale and invest in new areas in your business, increasing the deal flow. So how many leads, how many good quality leads are coming in, and increasing project size and quality. So we don't always need just a ton more leads, just increasing the size of the project and the quality of the clients that you're getting is often enough in order to scale and grow and ramp up your business. The first lever we talk about is increasing your net margins. Increasing your margins is one of the most important things for proper scaling. If your margins are too low, you can grow your revenue, but the actual money that you're putting in your pocket is going to actually diminish because as you scale, you're probably going to add project managers, more office staff, maybe a salesperson. You're going to put more into advertising spend. So there's all of these additional investments that you're going to need in order to scale. And if your margin's in the wrong place, you are going to find yourself essentially broke and wondering why you chose to scale in the first place. So we've got to get the financials, the money, the estimating, all of this stuff right, which is what we're going through now. So in order to charge premium prices, you need to position yourself around a specific ideal client. Just being a generic contractor in the marketplace is not enough nowadays, especially if you want to grow your business and become a dominant player in your marketplace. So niching down on a specific type of client who can afford your services and is more concerned about the building experience and the quality than they are with just saving a couple bucks and finding the cheapest contractor possible. You don't want to be competing on pricing. Hey, XYZ contractor said they could do it for this much. Can you match that price or can you do it lower? In order to grow the business that you want to be at, you need to be able to charge premium prices and you need to provide a premium service to your clients. So first thing is raise your prices and then be able to back that up with the value you provide and the branding and your messaging. Why do I need to go into all this detail? It's super important. The next thing is nailing your niche. So finding out what is the problem that you solve and what can you solve easiest, better than your competitors, better than anybody else, what comes naturally to you. So this could be the professional who's got a raise and now they want to upgrade their home. This could be somebody immigrating to the city who moved here for work and now needs a new place. What are the specific unique problems that you are solving for your client? And it's more than just a place to live. Whoever knows the client best wins the sale. When you know your client inside and out better than they do, what they're going to want, why they're considering this build, whatever it may be, you will then win the sale because people want to do business that they know, trust, like, and that gets them. They will have no problem paying you additional for the right fit of builder that you will be. Next is building a lead generation machine. So this we're going to go into a bit more detail later on as far as the nuts and bolts, but essentially building a lead generation machine, you want to have multi-channel marketing. So you should be on all the major social media channels, email, website, SEO, paid advertising. You don't need to do it all at once, But that is where you need to get to. You need to be omnipresent in the marketplace so that people, no matter where they are, they can find you and you're drawing from a very large crowd and then qualifying them down to those specific clients that you want to work with and who are going to be a great fit for you. This lead generation machine, it's something that I have worked on consistently for decades now. And there is really no end to the amount of leads or the quality of leads that you can get. And it's really about consistency and putting the right building blocks in place, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. And then operating from abundant leads and better clients. When you're not scared about your next lead, when you've got work lined out for 6 months, 1 year plus, you're in this mentality and you're able to take on jobs that are profitable, that are a good fit for you. If you're in that place where you're still scrounging to get work, every job is like a must win for you in order to keep the lights on and keep, your guys busy and all this stuff. You are naturally going to undersell yourself because you are in a bad position as far as like, not that you need to negotiate with the clients, but you don't have a lot of room to let leads slide if those clients are not willing to pay you what you are worth as a builder. If you're used to competing on price and you try to scale up, like I mentioned before, you're going to have additional overhead. You're going to have to hire other managers and all these things. And it's going to be a breaking point because the overhead you have now is probably not sufficient for a larger company that you want to grow in the future. So you've got to get that pricing right. And then giving highest quality service and raising your prices. So reinvesting things that actually matter. So specific marketing channels, lead gen channels, setting up systems around marketing, all this stuff, like really be strategic with what you're investing so you get the maximum ROI, and then over delivering to clients with the experience they provide. Everyone says we do great work. We really care about our clients. Every contractor in your area is going to say that. I've yet to meet a contractor that says we provide lousy experience, we do a horrible job, and our quality sucks. You need to go above and beyond that. And I'm going to be sharing with you exactly which pieces to get in place for this, but essentially setting expectations really early with clients so that they know what to expect, having a system for onboarding, a system so they're always informed, so they're taken care of, so they can raise, flags if something looks out of place or there's issues, they get a good response. You're leading them every step of the way. They're never wondering what's going on. They're never concerned about, am I spending too much money or why do I have these extra costs? You need a specific system to make sure the experience is amazing for your clients, because that's what's going to turn into referrals, more reviews, testimonials, and that's what's going to keep your engine going. The next part of increasing margins is setting up automations. There's a lot of automations available to you that can get set up to take care of admin, to do messaging, financials, a big part of financials that can all be automated. Save you easily 10 plus hours a week for you. Never mind if you have an admin staff and these other people with AI nowadays, you can really get a lot more production and a lot done that takes it off your plate. You don't have to think about it, so you can focus on what actually matters instead of these small like admin tasks. They eat up your time, but they also eat up your profit margins when you've got all of these people or things happening that are manual processes when they can be easily automated. And then get a good project management software. The project management software, it'll help you all the steps of the way from leads to estimating, running the project to the financials. Really utilize your project management software, the complete software build from when a client comes in as a lead all the way to when you close them out and your follow-ups, 6 months, 1 year after the project's complete for warranty or touching base or whatever. Really utilize the whole extent of your project management software. It'll save you a ton of time. It'll make your projects more efficient. It'll make your business more efficient, save you money. Next thing is standardizing your estimating process. I grew my construction company extremely quick, and I did not have great margins when I started scaling my business. And I felt a pain really hard about a year after we really grew, tripled revenues, had the lead gen thing figured out, and did not really understand the estimating and financial side of my business at the level that I should have. And it hurt me, essentially. I realized that, wow, we grew massively as a business, but we were having cash flow issues, all because I didn't have the right estimating set up and the financial checks and balances. So the thing with estimating is you should have 3 different types of estimates. You start with a ballpark. Ballpark is a little bit off the cuff, back of the napkin sort of math. And essentially, this is when someone calls you and they ask, how much is this going to cost? I want to build a new home in, this location. how much is it going to cost me? You are doing square footage takeoff pricing, depending on where you're located. But essentially, from that, you can already give them some sort of a cost. You may go into a little bit more detail where maybe you're taking into account, okay, this is like the living space, they want a garage. So you can do a little bit of adding on, but you're just doing like a really big bulk estimate essentially. Then you let them know, hey, your new home is going to cost you about $1 to $1.2 million. Is this within your budget? Is it feasible? Is it worth, getting into a more rough type of budget with more details and itemized? And then from there, you can quickly filter those clients who are like, wow, no, like we were hoping to spend, 700,000. It's like, well, we can build a house for that, but we may need to be a little creative with a few things and maybe the size may have to be adjusted. Let's get you, talking with our designer or whatever. So you try to move them forward if you can. But if they're way out to lunch, like they're like, we've only got 400,000 to invest, and you're like, I can't build a home for under 500, then maybe they're not a good client for you. That's kind of the big filter. If they pass the ballpark and they're like, yeah, that seems reasonable, or that's close, maybe a little bit more we want to spend, but within reason, then you move on to a rough budget. A rough budget is going to be, you're going to do takeoffs and you're going to have bulk sort of pricing, but now you're providing an itemized quote. And typically you're using a template. You should have like a new home build template, or if you do remodels, like a remodel template, and you're just plugging in essentially their square footages, your pricing catalog, pricing database, prices. You're not spending a ton of time, should take 1 to 2 hours maybe. You're not putting hours and hours and hours into providing a free estimate to them. The ballpark's free. Typically the rough budget's going to be free. And then you can give them a nice itemized budget. I like to use the word budget more than estimate with clients because we're budgeting the project. It's not a final end thing. And then once they have that in place, it's pretty clear you're probably within 10, 15% of the final cost of their project. If it still looks good to them, that's when you move them into a pre-construction agreement. And the pre-construction agreement is quintessential, must have. You need to have some sort of pre-construction agreement in place to then move the client into the planning phase of the project. This is where a lot of builders lose a lot of money and end up competing with everybody else in your market. You need to be able to sell like a low ticket, maybe $5,000, $10,000 retainer to the client, move into pre-construction agreement, and then you can charge for estimating, you can charge for design, you can charge for scheduling, anything that goes into permitting, planning, anything like that. And then you can go into the drill down estimate. The drill down is where you start tendering it out, you bid it out, you do selections with the client, all this stuff. So as you can see, one leads into the next, and there's this natural, easy progression. And then by the time you get to the construction agreement, they've already spent, 10, 20,000 with you potentially. They've got plans, they've got a schedule, they've worked with your team, they've had hopefully an amazing experience with you so far. And they know exactly where the pricing is at because you're giving them iterative budgets, slowly narrowing down. By the time you get to construction agreement, they know exactly what's happening. There's no guesswork at that point. So a few other things with standardizing your estimating process is job costing. Should have job costing in place so that you know the actual amount spent to what you estimated, so that you can then go back and see, are we $10,000 over on framing? Maybe we're under $5,000 on electrical. So you can always be adjusting and realizing where inefficiencies are, where you need to adjust your numbers and things like that. So you've got this feedback loop of ever increasingly better estimating. You make your money when you estimate a project. By the time you get into production, you've already estimated, you already priced it, and you can't really make money at that stage. Like that is where you get paid the money. Estimate a project and then sell it at a high enough margin. When you go into production, you're going to make that money. Even if, no estimate's perfect and you go over budget a little bit, you can still have healthy margins and you have an accurate estimating so that you can make money on the other side. This is like why it's so important to get estimating right. You should have good templates in place. As I mentioned, it avoids things being missed or lost in the shuffle. And, I know the pain, I'm sure you know the pain of doing a project, getting into it and realizing I forgot some small thing, but it ends up costing thousands or tens of thousands of dollars because it wasn't in the estimate. Software, I like to use my project management software for estimating, simply because then it carries into everything else and it's all kind of inclusive in one. Depending on the type of project management software, again, I like to pick ones that have the takeoff software included with the project management software. So it's all in one and it's really easy. You should have your cost code so you can do proper job costing, templates, and pricing database. Those are really the big key components. Create a pricing database. Programs now will even kind of sync with Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever to pull in pricing as needed. Or you've got these RS Means or OneBuild, all these different ones that can pull pricing in that are current to you and your locality. Potential mistakes you can be aware of. So there's a few, like I'm constantly seeing. One, probably the biggest one, is not having supervising or project management cost as a line item in your estimate. The project is going to take management time. So you need to have project management in your estimate. And the way to calculate this is, let's say you've got a new home build, it's going to take 6 months. Then you're going to go, okay, we've got about 20 working days per month. And on average, a project manager is probably going to spend about 2 hours managing a new home build every day. So then you can just 2 hours a day per month, and you just extrapolate. I don't know what that is. I'm not in my calculator hat on right now, but let's say 300 hours that's going to take to manage this build. 300 hours times $100 an hour or 110 or 20 or 90, whatever your project management rate is, that should be on your estimate. And the reason you want to have this is, first, so you know what you're getting paid for project management. Second, so you can hire a project manager. Hiring a project manager should not be eating away at your profit margin. It should be a line item on your estimate that the client is paying for the management of their project, that they're building their house, right? So second thing is, then you can do the job costing, because if you don't calculate by hour and you've got a project manager, you're paying them typically by hour, unless their salary, which is not typical. And they should be clocking in to specific jobs. So they're keeping track. And at the end of the build, you can see, hey, they spent 250 hours on this new home build. Great. We actually calculated 300. So we're ahead, and we can, maybe we can reduce that on the next one, or maybe it's just an awesome project manager or whatever it is. But then you can do that feedback loop. So that's one of the big mistakes I see. Another big mistake I see with estimating constantly is the markup. I like to see all the line items calculated pretty accurately with a little bit of room on top. I see this quite often where your electrician's quoted you a job, let's say $15,000, and then you put it in your estimate at $20,000, and then you apply your markup, which is maybe 20%, and you know that you've got that 25% buffer essentially on their price in your estimate. The problem with this is when you do that actuals to budgeted later on, it makes it look like you're always sort of ahead, and you don't really know what percentage you've overcalculated on specific line items. So you've got to make this make sense for you. If you have 2 or 3 bids on electrician, the highest one is 15,000 and the lowest one is 12,000. You might put that line item for like 16,000, and then increase your markup on your estimates. Now, markup and margin are not the same thing. And then figure out how much overhead expenses you have. Probably 15 is about average. So if you got 15% margin, that's actually a 20% markup. It's just how the numbers work out. So if you are marking up 20% and your margin of overhead is 15%, you are not making any money. If anything goes over and you end up paying more than what you estimated for the build of your project. And this is why you may get to an end of a project and be looking around like, should have profited like $200,000 on this job with my markup, without realizing that all got eaten up by your overhead. So that's why it's very important to know your overhead. The third one is not having someone else check your estimate. Your top foreman, or if you've got a site manager, somebody else in your business should be double checking your estimates, because you are so close to the action and you may not see things that other people would. And they may ask questions about the estimate that you wouldn't ask yourself. So having just a quick check with someone, 10 minutes or so, and that can help a world of wonder. Use AI, load it into ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it may be. Have a prompt. Is there anything I'm missing? Anything I should be aware of? Does everything look clear here? And how can I improve this? Don't rush this process. I see this and I get it, because you're busy. You got clients calling you. You've got marketing to take care of. Take the extra 10, 15 minutes just to review it, look through it, make sure things are accurate, because a 10, 15 minute review could save you tens of thousands of dollars. And I don't know too many people that are making, $40,000 an hour as a wage. I know there's a lot, and this first lever is definitely one of the big ones, because margins are so incredibly important, and you need to run your business and be making business decisions based on the financials, based on the numbers. The last thing on the profit margins is systemized cash flow. We've talked about the estimating and the lead gen and all that stuff. Now it's the actual cash that's coming in your business and how to manage your finances. The way to do this efficiently is it's called the Profit First Method. It's a book by Mike Michalowicz. And essentially, you have revenue coming into your business. So let's say $100,000 this month that goes into your bank account. That $100,000 should then be distributed to other bank accounts that you have. So typically you're going to have 4 to 5 business bank accounts. You've got one that collects all the money. And then from there, you're distributing to profit. So you're going to take that $100,000, you're going to take $5,000 out and put it into your profit account. So that's 5% profit set aside. Then you're going to take owner's pay. This could be 10%. So you're going to take $10,000 from the $100,000, put it into your owner's pay account. This is what you're going to pay yourself, whether that's paycheck or salary or whatever. And then you're gonna have taxes. You're gonna take out and put into your tax account. And then what you're left with goes into your expense account. And this is what you're going to run your business off of. So this is the remaining money is going to go towards expenses, materials, labor, overhead, whatever needs to get paid from there. The reason you do this allocation is because you don't have to wait for your bookkeeping or financial statements to know where your money is. I've got my taxes covered. I've got my profit covered. I got my salary covered. And then this is how much expenses we have. So if your expense account's getting too low and you're like, man, I'm running out of cash, you know that your allocations are not correct. So maybe you only have to take like 2% profit for the time being and then work your way up to 5%. Maybe your owner's pay needs to be reduced. That is how you can quickly kind of gauge of like, how is my cash flow doing by having these different bank accounts. Tracking every dollar in and out, this is not a difficult kind of concept, but it's a very difficult thing to get set up. So, reach out to us. This is what we do. We work with clients to set all these systems up for them and help them scale their businesses. But as far as like tracking every dollar and job costing, when you've done the estimate correctly in your project management software, that gets moved into a project. Now, all the expenses from your accounting software, it could be QuickBooks, Xero Sage, whatever you're using, that information that is cost of goods sold gets pulled into your project management software and then it gets allocated to the projects. So, every week, let's say your project manager is going to go through there and this expense is for this project, for framing, this expense is for this project, finishing, so on and so forth. And they're going to categorize everything. And then in your project management software, you can essentially run a report that shows this is how much we spent to date for this and this and this on every single project. So that is the idea, managing change orders effectively. As you scale, the complexity is going to go up. So if you are already a little bit unorganized, people don't know what's going on, you don't have good training, change orders aren't being processed properly, you're losing money on projects. If you try to scale, you're in for a world of hurt. You really need to get things kind of tuned in. It doesn't have to be perfect, but things have to be clicking because as you scale, if you're having problems now, those problems are just going to be amplified as you grow. So a good change order process that's effective and efficient, making sure that there's not extra work being done on site that you don't know about or isn't being charged to the client that should be. Profit killers using job costing accounting software reports. So as I mentioned with the job costing, there are profit killers that just eat away at your margins and your profitability, and having your numbers in place and being able to look at those every week or month is going to really alert you to, hey, why are we spending so much on this? Or why do we still have this subscription? Always looking at how can we reduce costs and save some money on kind of the overhead or the project management side of the business. Last thing I'm going to be talking about as far as cash flow, there should be probably quarterly or at least twice per year. Look at all your suppliers and go back to them and see if you can negotiate discounts, free delivery, longer payment terms, whatever you can do, especially large suppliers. If you're spending, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on materials or purchases from these suppliers, see what kind of contractor discounts they can apply you and see if you can, increase that over time. You never know. It's worth asking about. Not that you want to just get the cheapest price or try to like do something shifty with all your suppliers and just beat them down to get the smallest price possible. But you never know, there may be new programs or discounts or things that they can do. Obviously, if you're giving them a lot of business, they're more likely to stick with you and provide better pricing for you. Now, one of your biggest expenses as a business is your labor. Your labor expense is going to be one of the largest parts of expenses of a business. And it's one of the hardest things to maybe conceptualize of how efficiently you are performing with labor. Materials is pretty easy. With your team, you really want to make sure, they're happy and they're staying productive and you're providing all the support and training and everything you can to make sure that they can do their job and they can be consistent with it. I'm sure you have those guys, they'll drink a Red Bull and they'll go crazy and they get a lot done in a day, but then, they get a paycheck and they call in sick on Monday or whatever, right? So your team, it's really about efficiency over the long haul and someone who can be consistent and stick with your business. Invest in your team's training, leadership, communication, so that they can get more work done, so that they know this is a professional environment. This is huge. Priorities for yourself, for your team. I'm sure you've run into these people that are super detail oriented and they take forever to do anything because they got to get it perfect. They got to talk to 10 different people and watch 5 different YouTube videos in order to know how to do this one little specific task. So making sure that your leadership, I understand sometimes things get crazy, but these are the top things that I need you to be accountable for. Making sure employees show up on site is your number one priority. Second is making sure the subtrades know what they're doing. Third is like having materials ordered 2 days or a week ahead of time. So things can get unorganized and scattered. And that's where everything sort of seems to kind of drag to a halt. And if you've ever had a project like that where just nothing seems to be getting done, what actually is important. From there, divide your company into tasks, each member taking on clear roles. This is another thing that really hurts margins is when people aren't really sure of their role or their job. Inevitably, you have stronger employees that start taking on the work of weaker employees and weaker employees that just start to slack off because someone else is taking care of it, or they're like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So having that clarity and structure in your business provides clear communication to everybody of this is what you should be doing. This is what we expect of you. This is how things get done around here. The last thing we mentioned on productive and happy team is before giving feedback, compliment something they've done well. It's very easy to say, hey, why did you mess this up again? Or don't do this. This is how you should be doing that, right? If you see something good, say it. Hey, I really liked that you've been showing up regularly. You're always here a little bit earlier, setting up the tools and stuff before more of the guys. Just wanted to let you know I really appreciate your effort, right? Saying the good stuff for feedback. And that way, when you do have feedback of something that's a little negative or room for improvement, they don't take it as harshly because you've kind of built up that strong relationship of the good things that they've done. And if you need help implementing these same strategies that helped my clients scale to 5 million a year, click the first link in the description to apply to work directly with me. Now, lever number 2, increased deal flow. And you're in for such a good time on this video. Like, we are going nonstop, all out, everything, how to scale your construction business. I hate to see it. Contractors, you've been in business 2, 5, 10, 20 years sometimes, and you're still just stuck on the day-to-day, wearing all the hats, firefighting, and you never seem to kind of get ahead or break free of that cycle. With deal flow and businesses, you always want to have much higher demand than you can facilitate. And this is where a lot of contractors get it backwards because they're thinking, oh, I need to produce like a lot of work in order to make more money. And if I get, 10 leads, I need to do 10 projects. You're always trying to just throw as much work and get work done as fast as you can, instead of realizing you want demand really high and you are not going to meet that demand. If you have 10 people come to you, we want you to build our brand new home for us. Your thought process should be, I'm going to build maybe 4 of these homes, because you're going to take on the 4 best clients who are best suited for you with the highest margins that are willing to spend what you are worth as a business. And that's how you get in that abundance mindset. That said, you want a lot of deals, a lot of leads, qualified leads, so that you can pick the cream of the crop. So consistent deal flow is the backbone for scaling construction companies because you need all that demand. And then when you scale, you can bring up production. And because your demand is so high, you're not going to fall off as well. This is another common roadblock or pitfall. You start to scale, you get these 10 homes that come through, you build them, you hire like a project manager, 2 project managers, and then all of a sudden demand sort of tapers off, seasonally or economy or whatever. And now it's like, oh, I got to, lay off this one of my project managers, or we're just trying to stay busy. Your margins start to shrink. You start to try to sell jobs, and you got this downward spiral, which you want to avoid. And by doing that, that's why you need to be able to increase your production, but only when demand is at a super high level. So how do we do that? You don't need a big marketing budget because more leads does not equal more revenue, like I mentioned. Instead, you need to increase deal flow the right way. This is something that we work on early on with clients as well, because we want to make sure that we're just front loading their pipeline essentially with good quality leads. Multi-channel marketing, as I mentioned earlier, you want to be on all of the different social media channels, website SEO, email, paid advertising, everything and anything you can do in marketing, you should be doing. Now, you might say, that's crazy. Like, I'm never going to have enough time. I'm going to need a full-time marketer. I don't mean that you need to be active on all those different marketing channels, but you should at least have the infrastructure set up. So you should have an account, you should have your profile, you should at least understand it and have some basic elements in place, because as long as you can get your infrastructure set up, you're already probably much ahead of most of the rest of the competition around you. And then you can also start to see what works. This certain thing is working for you, you double down on it. You spend more time or more money on it. This other thing is not really working, you just leave it alone and don't spend too much time on it, right? So that is why you want to be in these different areas, because different types of marketing will produce different results. And when you find those good results, you want to double down. So you're kind of like you're fishing, you got a couple of hooks, in the water. And if you find big fish in this one area, then that's where you're going to put more. A referral network as well. When I talk to builders, a lot of the times, where do your best leads come? It's from referrals. Where do most of your leads come? Referrals. So what is your referral strategy? I don't know. I ask them for referrals, my clients. You should have a referral system that is bringing in more referrals for you and facilitating that. How I like to do this is we provide a what to expect document to new clients. Before they start the build, it just outlines all the stuff to do with, how the building goes down and information about the company. And one of the sections is referrals. If you know your neighbor, friend, uncle, cousin, aunt, whoever is planning to do new home build, remodel, whatever, let us know about it. One of the best compliments we get from clients all the time is that they refer their friends and family to us. If this so happens that it comes up in a conversation, please send us an email with their name or text us. Tell them specifically, your clients, how you want them to refer people to you. Because the last thing you want to do is for them to have a conversation at a party or something. Yeah, we're thinking about building a new house next week. Oh, yeah, we're working with such and such builder. They're really good. And nothing happens from it, right? So you want to preempt that, put the seed in their mind. And then midway through the project, you're going to do a little bit of a feedback review. If they're happy, if things are going well, then again, ask them, hey, anybody else that may be looking at doing a similar project like this? And then every 6 months to 1 year, you should be getting on the phone and calling all of your past clients. How's it going? How are the kids? Is everything still going good at your house? Any issues with the work we did? We are now booking into, next year. If you have friends or family, anybody who's considering this, I would love to kind of get them ahead of the curve because things get really busy. It's always kind of like you've got this base, this network of people that can refer to you. And then, of course, your architects, designers, realtors, all these types of business professionals. That referral network is so important, and you spend all this money on advertising or marketing on social media to get a lead. That lead should then turn into another one, which should turn into another one, so that you're always growing your network and your client base. And that's how you increase your deal flow. The purpose is you're growing your lead base and your referral base. And that is going to help you scale your business and what you can rely on as a great foundation to grow and scale. Third thing I mentioned about multi-channel marketing, implementing a CRM. So how do you remember to follow up with these people? How do you remember all this stuff? How do you remember how many kids they have, or if they've got a dog, or if they went away on vacation? A good CRM can track all of this stuff. You can send out email marketing. You can do social media posting. We've got one that we've developed, Rapid Lead CRM is what it's called. We provide it to our clients. And essentially you can create a post, it'll push it out to Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, a lot of automations that can go into a good CRM. So if someone calls you or fills out the form on your website, all that information should pull in, and it should send off automatic emails, have scheduling calendars. There is so much that goes into a good CRM, and a lot of builders are missing this. You probably have a good project management software that manages the project as you're estimating. Maybe it has a little bit of you can put in a lead, but they're missing the whole marketing and lead gen part of it. And that's why we produced our own and provided to clients, is because I knew that piece was missing. And that is what, pulls in the leads and captures all the information and then nurtures them. It's another huge thing with this increased deal flow is if you're always relying on new leads coming in, you're spending way too much money and time and your lead quality is going to be super low. Whereas when you can pull in those leads, yes, you want a good flow of leads coming in, but when you can nurture them, because again, they may not be looking for a place right now, maybe 1 year or 2 years out, you need that email sequences and the nurturing through social media and campaigns and all this stuff. It's a very warm conversation. They already see your value instead of just clicking some random Facebook ad and like calling you, right? Because at that point, they don't know you. You're just one of all the rest of them. And then paid ads. Paid ads are the last sort of piece of the puzzle to a marketing strategy. Paid advertising is like fuel for the fire, but you need the fire to be going already. And it doesn't have to be huge, but you should have like all your social channels set up. You should have a good website that can capture leads, that has good call to actions. If your marketing is crappy and you spend a whole bunch on advertising on Facebook and things like this or Google, they're going to land on your website and they're going to bounce because it's like this looks unprofessional, or they can't fill out the form properly, or nobody like calls them or follows up with them. So you need a good marketing and outreach program so that your paid advertising is actually being worth it and they're converting into clients at a higher rate. When I started in my construction business, I did not like marketing. I didn't know how to do marketing. And now that I've gotten good at it, it can be fun. Once you set up the system and things are clicking, life becomes a joy. Like it just becomes so much better. So if you're really like now, like, oh, so stressed out, there's so much to do. A big part of that is going to be because your systems just aren't up to where they should be, or you've been going about it the wrong way. And I'm going to be laying out everything A to Z, like I mentioned. So a few red flags with new clients and deal flow is detecting clients that are focused on making you lose, are unresponsive or indecisive. You often probably get this kind of spidey sense when someone calls you or you talk to someone that they're just looking for the lowest price. Husband is always traveling and the wife is always busy with something. Just realize going in that sometimes letting clients slip makes room for the clients that are a good fit. So don't be afraid to kind of either raise prices on clients that you think are going to be difficult. Raise your price a bit because it's going to take more management time. And if they go with someone else, great. Don't worry about those. Let them go. Not starting overly complicated designs or projects that are outside your core expertise. So it can be very appealing to work on that huge project or that big, house or whatever. But if it's super complicated and something way out of what you've done before, it's best to just let them know like, hey, this is a little bit beyond what our business is ready for at this moment. And they will really appreciate you for that. And when they do have projects that are more in line with like the type that you do, now they are going to go to you because they trust you. They know that you're going to tell them straight up, if you can handle this project, you want to make sure that the service is amazing. Yes, you should be increasing your job size and you should be challenging yourself to do better builds, but just realizing that more complex builds does not mean a better build. The more consistent your projects can be, the better easier it is to create systems and have your people trained, because now they're doing kind of the same type of build or house over and over and over again, instead of like always super different, super custom. See if you can maybe refer it to someone else and get a referral fee or something like that, or they can show you the ropes and maybe bring you along on a project. I've seen a lot of projects go sideways. Builders' reputations take a nosedive because they overextended themselves essentially on a huge project. So now we're going to go through the deal flow. Same deal securing process I teach my clients who are doing over $10 million in revenue. This is part of the sales process that I learned working in a $100 million construction company. So the first thing is marketing systems that 100 million companies use to track $5 million plus projects. You really need to go back to the drawing board on the branding and niche. So that's where you start. And then your marketing needs to be centered around that. So your messaging, everything on your website doesn't even have to be like super high end, but you want to be looked at a quality builder. That means if you are a home builder, all the pictures on your website should be of finished, beautiful homes. New leads go on your website. They don't want to see a stick frame building or a roughed in building or a pile of dirt with a bunch of excavators. That's not what they want. Everything from the messaging should speak to that ideal client. So if it's professionals that make over $200,000 a year, you need to know how they talk, what college or universities have they been to, all that stuff, to be very aligned, so that by the time you get into a sales conversation, they're already very warm and they know you. Qualifying those leads with questions on project, start time, budget, and location. So you're going to get a lead. Whether it's through the form of your website or they call you, your secretary, or if it's yourself answering the phone, should have a list of qualifying questions, and you should be asking them on the phone and filling it in. When are you starting? What's the project size? What's your budget? What's the location? Have you worked with a builder before? Have you contacted other builders? Do you have plans already? And there should be a bunch of qualifying questions. And that's why you do that ballpark budget. So you can easily tell, is this going to be someone I want to work with or not? And by qualifying those leads, you're going to spend your time on the ones that really matter. Free consultation that build rapport and feasibility. There's a balance between, free and being unprofitable essentially. With clients, there is a certain amount of goodwill and face that you want to save. I know there is, coaches, gurus, builders out there that are like, nope, I always charge for estimate. If you're getting like unlimited leads and you don't want to grow your business a whole ton, then maybe you can continue to do that. But typically spending a couple hours for a new client after you've gone through the qualifying questions, so you know they're qualified, you know that this is affordable, this is within their budget, this is what they want. Spending a few hours not only gives you or them the ability to see if you're a good fit, but you can see if they're a good fit as well before moving into like a formal pre-construction agreement. From there though, once you've provided that budget, you've talked with them a little bit, you've given them a couple hours of your time, now you want to move them into pre-construction agreement for design, scheduling, and budgeting. So everything they need in order to make a decision and move into the construction phase. So how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? What is it going to look like? If you do not have in-house designer, if you're thinking like I can't really do a pre-construction agreement because I don't have designers or architects, go call designers and architects and get them on your team. You can get someone into a pre-construction agreement contract. Essentially, you're just charging out whatever expenses you incur. So if you pull in a designer, designer's working with them, anything that the designer is charging, you're essentially charging through to the client with your markup on top. Your project manager yourself, if you're budgeting, if you're calling the city or the county to put plans or permits through or whatever, if there's any cost associated with that, you're just forwarding that to the client. This just gives them that agreement and that space so you can start working together and move their project faster. This is the first sale that you need to make. You need to be able to sell pre-construction agreements to your clients. Once you can sell those, then the construction sale and everything that comes after is a lot easier. And it's also a lot less risk for the client because they're only agreeing to the pre-construction agreement, which may cost them $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. They're not agreeing to, a $1 million contract to build their home. And that's why this is so important, because if they've worked with a designer or architect and now they're coming to your business for estimating and they need to make a $1 million decision, that's a pretty big sale. Whereas if they're making like a, $10,000, $20,000 decision, that's a lot easier. Once they worked with you, then that $1 million decision becomes even easier for them. And it's like a natural progression. So from there, you're going to provide the construction proposal. This is where you need to get over like any opposition for the sale. So like, oh, it's cost too much, or I'm not sure, we're going to wait on it, all this stuff. You need to be able to move the ball forward and get them into the construction proposal from here after the pre-construction agreement is done. And typically once you've got there, it's a pretty easy process then to move them forward. And then having all of this in that CRM system that I mentioned, having a consistent process so that every step of the sales, it just feels natural for the client. It's like, oh yeah, pre-construction, that makes sense. Oh, this is the budget. Yeah, no problem. So this is the designer, right? Okay, so next week we got the schedule, everything looks good. We're going to send you a proposal. They always know what's happening. They always know what's going to come, and your system is so dialed in that it just feels seamless to them. And they've got the meetings, they've met the team, their rapport is high. That is when all of this kind of sales and marketing stuff, and that's when your closing ratio goes way up, your margins go way up, the sales become easy. You've got the marketing engine bringing all the leads, you're qualifying, so only the good ones are coming through. And then you're selling at a very high rate into construction, into the pre-con, and then into the construction process. And this is how you then set yourself up to scale from there beautifully into the production and the systemizing of the rest of your business. Moving on to lever number 3. This one is about increasing the project size and quality. So your average project size you're doing. By using all 3 of these levers together, you are essentially getting a compounding exponential growth possibility, because every one increases margins and then they're amplified by the other 3. So that's why getting all 3 of these in place puts you in a beautiful, very strong position financially and also stability wise for consistency across your business. So increasing project size and maintaining high quality are important for a top-notch reputation. They can get you the right referrals, less risk, and long-term business growth. So by having larger projects, your reputation will grow, and they are less risky typically than doing a whole bunch of small projects. Having some larger projects, as long as they're managed properly, of course, and will position you in a great place to be able to scale up with less complexity. Doing 100 small projects is a lot more difficult than doing 5 or 10 large projects. It'll have higher revenue potential, which means more profitability potential. Often more margin can be gained as well. If you think you aren't at the level to take on big projects, you are flat out wrong. You can definitely take on larger projects. Again, you want to be focused. If you're a home builder, build homes. Don't go off doing like a whole bunch of large commercial projects or some sort of high-rise buildings and stuff like that. You can work your way there if that's really where you want to go, but you're much better just trying to improve the project size and quality and level of projects you're doing with inside your niche. If you start branching off too much and stay unfocused, you're going to cause a whole bunch of other issues that are going to make it harder for you to scale. Getting bigger projects. The big one is, like I mentioned before, niching down the correct way to stand out from the mass market provider. So you want to be very specific on the type of project, the quality of the project, the location of the projects, the size of the projects, so that you are finding the right clients and putting the right marketing and messaging out there. Creating a unique value proposition. This one can get confused with the niche. The unique value proposition, this is what unique value do you bring to the marketplace? It could be the methods that you use. It could be the structure of your organization. It could be the personality of yourself. Build your USP around you specifically, because eventually you want to step away from the business and you want the business to stand on its own 2 feet. Typically, this is what you do uniquely that is different than your competitors. And there's a whole analysis. I've got like a guidebook that I help clients walk through this essentially, but more or less you want to figure out what are you really good at? What does your competition lack, or what's missing in the marketplace? And then study your competition, study your best clients. So go back to the drawing board as far as what are the best, 5 to 10 clients I've had in the past couple of years. What similarities do they have? Not just clients, but projects as well. Like what's the best projects? What's different? How can I market and be more attractive to bring in those specific type of larger projects? Being a little bit exclusive and selective about projects you take on and clients you take on, it gives your business strength. It gives it that air of like, we're different. And as mentioned before, clients who are in that niche are going to be already very much aligned. Like, this is the builder I want, because they can see these are all the different past projects you've done in the past year. They're all exactly like the type of house or size of project or whatever that I've done before. And you'll build that reputation that you are the go-to for that type of project. Now, overcoming fears of your ideal clients by showing proofs. This is another thing about getting larger projects is when you're in a sales conversation or a marketing conversation, before they even like contact you on the phone or anything like that, your clients are already making up their mind about you, your business, your professionality, how much they're willing to pay, the value that you bring to the table, even if you haven't talked to them, just from your branding and your marketing. So that's why you need to be able to show proof. Lots of testimonials, ideally some client videos, whatever you can do, any awards that you've won, if you have some sort of reputation, any organizations, if you're part of the, your cities or counties home building association or anything like this, whatever you can put on your website and your marketing materials to show that you're part of the community, you've won awards, you're an outstanding builder, you have all this like list of clients. A few testimonials or reviews on your website is not enough. You should have 10, 20 different reviews, videos, your Google profile, all of this stuff just adding up that you're not just saying you're the best, but you're actually showing we've got a huge track record of amazing work and client experience that we've provided for clients. And then over delivering on every project so you can build a strong referral network. You're spending all that time and money on marketing, lead gen, creating your niche and your website, all that stuff that I mentioned. Don't let it go to waste by then just, getting so many clients. Every client provide an amazing experience so that they turn into another client. And that's, like I mentioned, you grow your referral network. Now, the way that you want to do this is by having a what to expect document early on that tells your client everything they need to know about your business, about your working hours, how they'll be invoiced for, how payments get processed, things to watch out for while the project's going on, the emotional roller coaster that they're going to be on. Tell your clients, getting started on the project is going to be exciting. We're going to be planning it. You're going to be seeing like everything come into play. And then we're going to have to go through selections and you're going to have to pick out all the materials. It might not be quite as exciting, but you're still going to be excited. And then you're going to have to sign the construction contract eventually. And your excitement may go down because now it's like the rubber meets the road. We're going to prepare you so much like before we get there. The what to expect document should outline all this. Don't have to go into like super high detail, but let them know there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be some issues that probably come up like on any build. We're going to walk you through it. You can expect, great communication from this, all that stuff. So that's a huge part of the client experience is pre-game it with this is what to expect. Any issue that comes up on site, if you're dealing with the same issues from clients like, oh, it's going over budget or it's going over schedule or this or that, you should be fixing that internally. But you should also be putting that in your what to expect document that if so this happens, it can be kind of expected. Even the unexpected is expected on construction. And, there's going to be dust, it's going to be noisy, whatever, right? So have that all in there. The other things to make sure that you're providing an amazing experience to your clients is weekly updates. Every client should get an update every single week. Typically on Fridays is the best. And it doesn't have to be a long-winded email of all the little things that happen, but just an email. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this week, we got past inspection. We installed the installation passed, and now we're going to be moving to drywall. Next week, you can expect the guys start mudding and taping. It's just like very bullet point of what got done this week. And it always gives them that little reassurance that, hey, stuff is getting done. I know what's going on. The guys are on top of it. And then you have any pertinent notes, this is on back order, this inspection, this didn't pass, but we're able to get it through, got it taken care of, whatever, right? So this is a great way to be proactive for your clients because now they don't have to call you wondering what's going on or, hey, I was on site, I saw this thing, what's this? It'll limit the amount of calls you get from your client and it'll instill trust in them that, hey, it's being taken care of. Other great things to have into place is for them to have access to the schedule. Not every nitty gritty thing, but as far as the phases go, there should be a general schedule, program, project plan for the client to see sort of what's happening and how it's unfolding, as well as access to their files, like their plans, any legal documents, all that stuff. Provide access to clients. I know some people like, I don't want to give my clients too much access. I don't want to be that open book because then they start digging into it and it starts causing problems and all this stuff. If you're running your construction company right, there's the odd time that'll happen, but most of the time when clients trust you, you can tell. I'm sure you've had this happen. When you have that client that's like, I know you guys are doing a good job. I trust you. You did a great job for, my neighbor, and now you're building my house. And they're not diving into all these little things because they know that you're reputable, that you're trustworthy, you're truthful, you're calling them when good things happen, when bad things happen. And by giving them this information, you're saving yourself a lot of admin time from having them calling you to ask for it or whatever. So now moving on to the second point here, improving project quality. Have project quality control lists. So proper QC checklists. You should have a checklist for starting the project, for foundation, framing, your rough-ins, your pre-board, insulation. Every major stage of the project should have a very built out checklist of all the little things. Is this straight? Is this square? Is this plumb? Is this installed? All of those little things that there should be check marks, quality controls, so that when you complete a certain phase of the project, you're not carrying all this stuff or things are getting forgotten about. You felt the pain before of places painted, you're starting to do finish carpentry and you forgot, where did we put the low voltage wire and now you got to go fishing around for it, or we forgot to install plugs along this wall or whatever, right? So there's all these things behind the wall that you do not want to have to deal with that should have been captured in either the framing or the rough-in stage, and you got to fix it later. It costs you, thousands of dollars in extra time and it just looks unprofessional when everything's said and done. So outlining quality, measuring defects, tracking, deliverables, validated. There should also be issue form submitter. So you should have a form that your clients can fill out. Hey, if you're on site and you see something that's out of place or you think something's wrong or not being taken care of, please write it in, go to this form and fill it in, or send us an email at the very least, and then you guys put it into a form so that all the issues can be tracked for their specific project. And again, you may say, well, I don't want the client like constantly finding all this stuff wrong in my projects. Good. Then get your guys to take care of it so your clients don't find it. And if your clients do find it, how good does it look from an experience standpoint that they can point out things that they think are wrong and they get a response quickly and it gets taken care of? Plus, even if they're a little bit picky, much better for you to take care of that issue when it happens than later on and get to the end of the project. I had a client who I was working with that we helped put in this quality control checklists and standards. He got to the end of the project. I asked him like, how's your project managers doing with the quality control that we've been implementing? He says like, I was quite surprised. We got to the end of a project. They were a home builder and they do lots of spec homes and things like that. He said, I was expecting like another 2, 3 weeks on this project because we are just kind of getting to the end of the work that was scheduled. Called my project manager. He said clients can move in like next week. We're almost already done. And our call was like on Thursday, I believe. And he was just surprised. He's like, what, really? You guys are done? Like, don't you have more stuff to do? And he's like, no, we closed up the few little things that were happening at the end of the project, and everything's complete and finished. Cleaners are coming through, and we're done the project. And he was so surprised because every project to date, they had always had like 2 to 3 weeks of punch list items that needed to get taken care of at the end of the project. But now they could just roll into the wrap up and pretty much just complete it, clean it up, and hand it over to the client. The other thing about project quality is it's not always just the final product. It's also like the budgeting and the scheduling. So how much quality do you have in the experience? I want to ingrain this in your head is the quality is about the experience. Your company probably does great quality work, but you provide a great quality experience. And meeting your schedules and keeping things on track and having a dynamic schedule that if, electrician takes an extra 2 days, that automatically gets adjusted on your calendar. You have buffers in there. Every schedule, you should buffer a couple of days in between large phases of the project, and maybe even one day in between your main trades. So between your foundation and your framers, buffer a day or two extra in there because inevitably there's going to be a rain or the guys aren't going to show up on time or they're going to be still stripping forms. And then your framers show up with their, framing package. And it's just nobody likes working around each other. So give yourself a little buffer in the schedule. Be, realistic that not everything's going to go as planned. Also in the schedule, you should be having your client meetings. So put those in there and ordering. If your cabinets manufacturer typically takes like 5 weeks to manufacture cabinets, then in the schedule, we're installing cabinets on this day, minus 6 weeks at least, that order needs to be in and getting produced by your cabinet maker. Typically, I would probably give it even more buffer, but 5 week window for ordering, 6, 7 weeks before that, you need to order. And if things get busy, it's very easy to miss that. That's why I put it in the schedule. This day, I need to order, and then everything is linked. So if that cabinet install day gets pushed out a week, that means your ordering can be a week later as well. And that's how the schedule, everything should cascade and have a critical path. And the final thing I'm going to be mentioning here about, larger, better quality projects is exceeding your client expectations. And this kind of stuff, you may think like, how does this attribute to larger projects? Like, shouldn't I just be marketing for larger projects? Yes, you should, but that doesn't mean you're going to land those projects. These 3 steps here that I mentioned, this is how you are going to position yourself and have the confidence to know you can do large, amazing, more detailed, more expensive type of project. And the marketplace is going to get crowded. Client satisfaction is what makes you a strong company. At the end of the day, it boils down to the client. Are they happy? Are they going to tell their friends, neighbors, relatives, everyone? The best salesperson you are ever going to have for your business is every single client that you have. Every single client is going to be a sales promoter or a sales demoter of your business. So make sure that this client expectations is super important. Yes, not everything's going to go great, but always make sure it's right by the client. That means if you have to take a small loss on a little part of the project, or you've got to call the client a couple of times, you got to deal with them, do your best to put out those flames, but really concentrate on your best clients because those are the ones that are going to refer you. Now, it's not just about you and your business as well, it's all your employees, right? So train your employees. How do you talk to clients? What kind of questions should you answer? How should you introduce yourself? If you're showing up to their house, how do you knock on the door? Do you park your truck right in the driveway in front of the garage that now they can't get out? Or do you park on the street? Do you park with their truck viewable to their front window, right? All these little details that add up, but are all attribute yourself to an amazing experience. You can think of going to any, big franchise like restaurant or store. You go in and everything is in order, everything's the same branding. You can tell there's a process, there's a certain way they greet you, there's certain questions they have to ask. Sometimes they're a little annoying, like, can I help you with anything and all this kind of stuff. But that consistency is what creates great client experiences. Updates, as I mentioned, those weekly updates for sure. Communicating fast and honestly. When something bad happens on site, call your client right away and tell them, hey, this bad thing happened. Just tell them the facts. You don't have to make a big story. You don't have to be like, oh, this is so bad, or this, I'm so sorry, or whatever. Just tell them, hey, this happened. This thing got wrecked. We're taking care of it. Don't worry. It's not going to affect the schedule. I don't know exactly how much it's going to cost you, but I should have an update for you within the next 24, 72 hours, 1 to 2 days, whatever it may be. That way your client, again, that trust gets super high because they know even if things go wrong, I know my contractor is going to call me and he's going to tell me exactly, what happened, and they're going to deal with it and fix it. And then it's out of their mind, and they don't have to worry about it, right? So the quicker the better. Everybody loves speed. They love getting responses. They feel appreciated and heard when they get quick responses. And the last thing, which I mentioned, is setting those clear expectations. So what to expect document, outline everything they need to expect about your company, the project, all of that stuff should be very clear for your client so they know exactly what to expect through the whole process. Now, part of getting bigger and better quality projects isn't just about size. It's also about the right fit and the ability for you to provide amazing client experience. So taking on the wrong project, it drains a lot of your time and money. I'm sure you've gone through these projects where it's like, why did I even take this project on, right? It's been a mess from day one. It's difficult. I'm going to lose money on it. It's a bunch of headaches. I'm dealing with the clients and I just can't wait for it to be done. My client, Rob, he applied these same filters that I'm going to share with you. They're able to double their revenue within 1 year, I believe. So you've probably heard this before, never leave money on the table. I don't believe this is a good concept, especially with clients. Your clients are going to be a reflection of yourself. So if you're always like worried about money, if you're always like in a rush, if you're unorganized, you're going to attract clients that are kind of operate the same way. So you want to be coming at this from, you're going to provide amazing value. The clients are going to pay what it's worth. They're going to hire you because you are in demand builder. And if the clients or the projects don't live up to those expectations, you need to be willing to move on and work for the next one that will be. Filtering wrong projects, this will help you scale because, again, it's not all about more leads, more clients. Growing the project size, you can go from 1 million to 2 million very easily and still do the same amount of projects by just, doubling the size. The first thing about this filter is the lead qualification checklist. Someone calls you, someone fills out the form on your website, asking them the questions, getting their information, ask them about their expectations, what size of building they're planning on building, what style, if they're working with a designer, interior. There should be a form that gets filled out. It should go into your CRM so that everybody has access to it and you can quickly filter out the ones that are going to be an issue or the ones that aren't just quite ready yet. And maybe you need to go back to the drawing board as far as what they can afford or contact them, at a later date, how soon they want to get started, if they've got other quotes from other builders. I know it can be uncomfortable, I guess, asking like, hey, are you getting other builders to bid on this job? And you don't need to make it super obvious. Essentially, you'd be surprised how open people will be with you when you don't make a big deal about it. Just ask them, hey, anybody else, that you've talked to about this job? Oh yeah, we talked to XYZ builder, and usually clients will be more than happy to tell you, especially if they're shopping you around because they want you to know, hey, I'm looking at all these other people. You better give me amazing price and amazing service and all this stuff, right? So you don't want to discount them for it. It's, being prudent for some people. Typically speaking, they're happy to tell you that. And then you want to schedule the home visit with your estimator, maybe project manager, whatever it may be. A receptionist could schedule maybe a 15-minute call with yourself so that you can ask them more specifically questions about the project. And then usually you can give them like kind of a ballpark range of the project. If that's feasible, then you would go, meet them in person or set up a Zoom call that's a little bit longer and more specifically what they're looking for, what you can provide, all those kind of things. You could also sell them right away on like a very low ticket first consultation. I know builders that have used this effectively where essentially you send a project manager and a designer over to their home as a intro meeting, charge maybe 100, $200, whatever it is, just kind of to cover your costs. It also kind of weeds out that selection filter of like, who's actually willing to put a couple $100 down to get some professional advice on the project and who's just kind of shopping around looking for some free quotes kind of thing. So essentially you're helping yourself because you are getting paid or you're paying at least the time that it takes to send your people over there. And then they can get information from the client, understand what they want, what they're looking for, start some preliminary planning, and then you can provide that rough budget that I mentioned earlier as a free service essentially with that. So that is a good way as well to filter who's actually serious and who's not. All right, so the 3 R's framework, you only want to take it projects that score ideally 3 out of 3. And at the very least, you want to know how many of these are you giving up if you're not hitting all 3 out of 3. But you should be hitting all 3 out of 3. First one is ROI. So is it financially worth it? Is this a project that's going to be worth it for me? If it's a small project or it's something far away, whatever it may be, but am I going to make a decent return on this? Another key thing in that estimating process that I mentioned is having a small project's fee or markup. So let's say you're marking up your estimates 25%. If you get a small project, whatever that may be, that could be any project under 50,000. It could be any project under 250,000 or 500,000, depending on the size of projects you're doing. Whatever is below that, your markup is essentially higher. So you could have a 30 or 35% markup on small projects. Mid-sized projects, your basic 25, and then maybe projects like large ones, a couple $1 million, you can lower your margin slightly because you know that they're more profitable as a whole, and you want to be more competitive on larger specific projects that you like and less competitive on the small projects or the projects that you don't like that may be farther away, and that if you do them, at least you know you're getting compensated by having that higher markup. So the second one is risk. So how risky is this? Is it something that's outside of what you normally do? Is it far away? Are the clients maybe a little bit of a risk because you're not sure? Is the project a risk because it's very economy based and you're using materials that you normally wouldn't like to use, but you're just trying to save them a couple bucks, right? So what's the risk involved? And then resources. Do you have the time and bandwidth? If you already maxed out on projects and they're telling you we have to start this project in 2 months, you need to tell them if you're already busy with work, sorry, I just don't see this as feasible. I think if you go with a builder that tells you they can start it in 2 months, we can get you in our pipeline, in 6 months. Much better to plan out this project. This house is going to last you 10, 20, 30 years potentially, depending on what you want. And you should not sacrifice a good quality build and a good quality project just to save yourself a couple months. Those are the 3 R's that you need to ask yourself about every project. And you should have a bit of a system behind this. So like I mentioned, those 3 R's, and then give it a bit of a scoring. So budget fit. How well is the budget aligned with the client's budget? Scope clarity. Are the clients quite clear on what they want? Timeline realism, getting back to before, do they want to start this as soon as possible and it's just not feasible? And then red flags. So how many red flags are there? Are the client's indecisive? Is it, a difficult project, whatever, all this stuff, right? So have a bit of a mental scoring, even jot it down and just write it out. Take that extra 5 minutes. These little things add up to big differences in your company. Put it into your processes. If you have other people taking care of this stuff and, like salespeople or estimators or project managers, do some pre-planning and use mental filters of is this an actual project? What's the score? Not just how it feels, but actually on paper, does this make sense? Now, refusing wrong projects, I know this can feel uncomfortable. Again, I remember doing this with a client and we were just way too busy. Their project was on the other side of the city. It was difficult to get to. It was a very complicated. I ended up having to let them know hey, I apologize, but we can't take on your project at this point. We've just got too much, and I've got to be able to make sure my existing clients are getting good experience and what have you. And they ended up complaining pretty badly about it, and I didn't feel great. It kind of sucked. And there's probably something I maybe could have done to let them off a little easier, but essentially, no one likes to hear that. And you need to find a way to do this respectively. You have to let people know that, your project just is not in line with the type of projects we're taking on, or we just don't have, room in our schedule at this point, whatever you need to do, but let them down gently and softly, and make sure you're always trying to save face, because you never know, they could come back in a year and have a larger project or still need something done or whatever so don't burn the bridge, but learn how to let those things go. Now you know the big three levers in order to prepare your business to scale. Even after getting the levers right, there's still a few things that you need to know in order to not cap your growth or slow you down. So even if you get thousands of leads without fixing the bottlenecks in your company, you'll still be wasting a lot of time, money, and energy. Scaling doesn't fix bottlenecks automatically. So that's another thing. Often you, as a business owner, are one of the bottlenecks. And growing a larger business just means there's more stuff flowing through you unless you're getting the right systems and processes in place. And the bottlenecks will get magnified essentially. There's going to be certain pinch points and bottlenecks inside your business that are just going to get even more profound and hold you more and more back as you scale. The bigger you get, the stronger the bottlenecks become. So my client, Melissa, doubled their profit margins in only 2 months. Actually, one of two clients recently who both did this for, and we've gotten really good at this, of being able to double margins, because often I pinpoint those few mistakes that I mentioned, in the estimating or the project size or a number of different things with expenses and all this stuff. And these, essentially, that's slowing you down, right? Like there's just these small fixes, seemingly small, but huge impact, that can double your margins and just position you within a very short period of time, 2-3 months, in order to start scaling your business. So the first one is inconsistent hiring and turnover. If you're struggling with people, can't find people that want to work, people that don't stick around, they don't show up on time, they don't know what they're doing, all of this stuff, take a good look in the mirror. You do not have a business that is setting employees up for success, or have a good system to bring in the right employees for the specific roles. It's probably a combination of both of those. For hiring, you always want to be starting with the ideal employee profile. We often think, who's our ideal client? But you should have an ideal employee profile for every role. So carpenter, project manager, estimator, office admin, chief financial officer, whatever it is, there's going to be a specific type of person that is well suited to that role. They're going to have a certain type of experience, certain characteristics. It should be documented. What type of ideal person will fit this role specifically the best? And the great way to start this is who's been good. So if you have like a site manager, foreman, crew chief, whatever you want to call it, think about like who's the best person you ever hired for that position, or the best two people you ever hired for that position. What were they like? What kind of characteristics did they have? What was their, demographics? What was their psychographics? All this kind of stuff. Because now you have a clear picture of that person. Now you create a job ad to attract that type of person. From there, there's going to be a 5-step hiring process. Most of the best people for a specific position that you want to hire in your business are already working in other businesses. They're not in the job market looking for jobs because they're good. They're already hired and they're working inside another company. How do you reach those people? It's extremely hard because they may not actively be looking for a job, but they may be thinking about it. So what you need to be able to do is that CRM that I mentioned, like the Rapid Lead CRM, you have everybody that's applied for those different positions in your CRM database, so that when there's a new carpentry job coming up, anybody who's applied for a carpentry job in the past 5 years, you can send an email out to them. Hey, by the way, we are now hiring for another carpenter position. If you'd like to reapply, please send us your resume or fill out this form or whatever it may be. Because that person 3 years ago that wasn't a good fit, that only had 2 years of experience, he could have 5 years of experience now and be a much better candidate for the position. But he's working in another company. He's not looking for a job, so you don't have access to him. So this is a way to really have a great hiring and make sure that you're pulling in the best people. The third step there is a quick phone call. You've sorted through the resumes. You pick out your top 3 to 5 candidates out of, however many applied, and you're going to call them. How's it going? Go through a few deal breakers. Do you have a vehicle? Can you legally work? You go through the resume just slightly, just to make sure they're telling the truth as much as possible. And then you get a read on them. Do they answer the phone? Do they call you back if you left a voicemail? Can they conversate? Well, if they sound like someone who could be a good fit, then you schedule the 60-minute in-person interview. Could be at the job site, could be at a coffee shop. I used to go to a coffee shop and I would just invite and have essentially 1 hour back to back to back. It may sound like a lot of time. Usually I wouldn't have 5. I might have like 2 to 3. And you can really spend the time with them. And if during the interview, you can tell like this person just is not going to work, you don't need to spend the full hour. Don't jump to conclusions, but ask them a few questions, thank them kindly for applying, And you should have a list of questions, typically around 10 questions, 10 to 12 questions, and you should be scoring them. The reason you score them on the questions is because it's hard to remember later. Like you get a feeling for people, but it's hard to remember later specifically how well they answered questions and where they excel and don't excel. So you can have a much better, review of that later to pick the right candidate. The last step in the 5-step hiring method is you have to do due diligence. Really make sure that you're calling their past employers, personal references they may have. You're looking into a background check is ideal. Look at their social media profiles. Typically, a lot of stuff is open nowadays, and you can go check out their Facebook, their Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be, and just take a look. It'll give you a good idea of what they do outside of their, working life, and it'll get you a little read. You don't want to put all of the emphasis on, how they have their, Facebook set up or whatever. People live their life. It doesn't necessarily mean they're this type of person or that, but it'll give you better insight and give you a fuller picture of who this person is and maybe how to differentiate between, 2 to 3 candidates. So that 5-step hiring process usually gives you really great people. And then after that, more on the turnover side is make sure you appreciate them and show it. Good employees are more concerned about having a good place to work where they, fit in, where they're appreciated, where they feel that they are being heard more than money. If you have the type of employees that if they get another dollar or two an hour, they're bouncing over to the next contractor down the street, then you're not doing your job properly, either by hiring or by creating a good culture within your organization. And you should be compensating your guys well. Don't think that you should be, always trying to keep their wages low or anything like that. If the only reason your employees are there is solely for a paycheck, obviously at the end of the day, they need to make money and support themselves. But if that is the only reason they come to work, then the culture and the experience that they're going to have and the dedication to you as an employer is not going to be that great. Accountability and leadership. I mentioned this earlier. You are the head honcho, the biggest leader in your business, and your business is going to rise and fall with your leadership ability. This happens all the time. It happened to me where business grows, you get a lot more people, a lot more money, a lot of stuff is happening, and you effectively don't have the leadership ability to be able to bring the right people in, to lead your people, to manage your finances, the team, all of this different stuff. So leadership really becomes important, especially as you start scaling, to be able to create leaders, work on building people inside your organization. So give your people authority, let them know these are the decisions that need to get made and how to make those decisions. We've got a SOP document for decision making. Essentially, what happens in this situation? What happens in that situation? What happens if this happens? Client gets upset or client asks, can you do side work for me? Or whatever, right? So these types of decisions you should not be making as the business owner. I mean, you make them, but you put them on paper so that your people know they've got a playbook of like what is an acceptable decision, how to make decisions. Is it a type A or type B decision? Type 1 or 2. There's different names for it, but essentially, can this get undone? And can we fix this, quite rapidly? Something like pouring concrete. That's a type 2 decision. It's pretty hard to change concrete once it's poured. So if they have to make a decision about concrete, they have to be, make sure you're clear on the specs, everything is checked and square. And if something's out of place, make sure we know that it's correct before we pour, right? So things like this, making it safe for employees to share concerns and admit mistakes. No person has ever not made a mistake, and nobody who's done great things and is a leader has not made a lot of mistakes. I find the best leaders have made the most mistakes. I've made tons. I make them every day and I'll continue to make them in the future. But I know that those are learning experiences. I know it's part of the game. I don't like making mistakes, but it happens, right? And you have to realize that with your people as well. There's a point of no return where if someone's negligent and making mistakes left and right and center and just isn't getting it, yeah, they've got to find somewhere else. But if they really care about their job, they're competent, they make mistakes, realize this is part of the game, and you need to put a better system or training or something to make sure that mistake doesn't happen in the future. But having your employees know that they can come to you and tell you when mistakes have been made or when they've got a concern about how things are getting managed or the client or the project, that's the kind of openness that you need to have. You really need to get away from micromanaging, create a system for people to follow, create space for them to follow, and then lead them so that they always know what they should be doing. They always know they can come to you if they need help and need some support. Now, one of the biggest mental mindset blocks that a lot of contractors get into when they start scaling is they don't realize that your role and the activities and tasks that you are doing need to change. They start focusing on too many different things and the wrong things. You need to be always hyper focused on 10x type tasks, 10x things that are going to move your business and start, being able to scale. Building systems that work while you sleep. Once you get these systems in place, your life just becomes so much more free. You have things dialed in. You're not getting as many calls and constant firefighting. So efficient systems are the building blocks of growth. You can't scale without systems. You must have an overall plan and structure for your systems. Without strong systems, you'll work harder and lose years of progress scaling the wrong way. I've seen this time and time again. Guys try to scale up. They get a bunch of jobs. They go from 1 million to 2 million to 4 million. The business becomes unmanageable. Finances are a mess. Team's a mess. Everything kind of falls apart. It's like a house of cards if you don't have a good, solid foundation of systems. So systems will help you overcome, low production. It'll even out and bring consistency to your production, to your leads, to everything that happens within inside your business. Now, I know you may be thinking, like, what are business systems? Isn't this a whole bunch of complicated techie kind of stuff? How do I actually build this? It's actually quite simple, and you just need to pay attention to this chapter. Before we get into the specific what the systems look like in the different areas of your business, there's really three components to a well thought out and a well implementable system, because building the system is one piece of it and can happen fairly quickly. Implementing it and getting your team to use it and working out all the little kinks and bugs in it, that is another piece of the puzzle and can take sometimes a bit longer. But with the right feedback loop, you can have ever increasing and improving systems. So the three components to a good system is the first, the SOP document. So this is just a document that outlines what are the steps, what are the things that need to get done. And you don't need to have every little detail with pictures and diagrams and this big drawn out huge document. You really want to just start with the big steps for an SOP. So if this is creating an estimate, what are the big things of estimate? You gather all of the materials, any notes, the plans, you will load up the takeoff software, you do your takeoffs, like whatever it is, right? Just the big steps. You don't need to have all the little nitty gritty stuff. The other component is the workflow. And I would actually start with this. The workflow is the big steps in a diagram. And I like to use Lucid Chart. There's a whole bunch of, different chart diagrams out there. Essentially, you're just creating little boxes, little squares with arrows of like, this is one thing, this is the next thing. Sometimes there's like a decision that needs to be made. The workflow gives a good visual representation of what this system looks like. The SOP document gets a little more granular and lets someone read it. And then the final piece to this three-piece system is the training video. So having some sort of video, pull up Zoom or your favorite screen recording software and just record yourself doing whatever needs to be done. If it's an admin task, estimating, anything software-based, just record yourself, talk through what you're doing. And with these three components, you can more or less hand that off to anybody. And yeah, they'll still need a little bit of guidance and training, but probably 80% of the training they need to do is contained within those documents. And then there's just going to be the certain little gaps of knowledge that you need to help them with. So that is how you put together a really robust system in your business. The issue comes into where to focus and what does the system actually look like, right? So my client, James, he tripled revenue after implementing proper systems in his construction company. And I'm going to be providing you some of the specific systems that we helped him with. So building systems for your core operations. The marketing is such an important part of your business. And if you have inconsistent marketing, your production, the rest of your business, your finances, everything else is going to be inconsistent. So that's why it makes sense to start at the beginning. The marketing leads into the estimating, and estimating, as I mentioned earlier, is where you make your money. So marketing system, what it should look like is all those different multi-channel marketing that I mentioned earlier, social media, email, website, all of this stuff. And then you need an actual document stating, how does someone create posts that goes out to your social media? How does someone write a blog article? How does somebody send out the email campaign? And now with like ChatGPT, Gemini, AIs and stuff like that, it is so easy to be able to create these systems now and have someone who's not overly experienced, who doesn't have a lot of knowledge, but who has a discerning eye for what is good or like aligned with your messaging and everything. It's very easy for them to create these marketing materials for you. Essentially, if you've done your homework, as I mentioned earlier, with the niche and you've got your unique selling proposition and you've got your brand guide, once you have those documents, you can upload those to like a chat GPT and then ask it, create me an email newsletter for the month of December, and make sure you mention the holidays and that people can book a free call to start planning their project in the new year. So you just give it a little bit of guidelines. Because it's got your niche, your ideal client, your unique selling proposition, you can have a link to your website in the prompt of the AI. Anybody, anywhere with any amount of experience can now create a very beautiful newsletter. Essentially, you lay out those steps and what needs to be included, and now you've systemized your marketing. Another reason to systemize marketing is you as a business owner, you've got other stuff to worry about than generating leads. Like that's a big important part. What I see time and time again is a contractor will do some lead gen or marketing, or season gets busy, things are good, and then all of a sudden they've got a lot of projects. So they're busy with the projects, managing their team, managing the projects, and they forget about their marketing, and the marketing dips down, and then those projects start to dip down, and now there's no new leads in the pipeline. And that's where that inconsistency comes in. So systemizing your marketing, super important. The SOP document and videos and all that stuff, chunk it down piece by piece. What's the most impactful I could do right now? Well, I want to be able to hand off email marketing to my team. Good. Train them on it. Get that off your plate. Figure out who you can hand this off to and create that system for them. Next one is estimating. And we've gone into some detail about this. As far as the SOP is concerned, what does people need to do once they start an estimate? If it's a project manager, they probably need to talk with the designer potentially. They should talk with you if you're the one that's still meeting with the client. So they gather all the information they can. They load up the documents. They start probably doing a takeoff, put in all their numbers. Next step would be to start building out the pricing. What does the proposal look like? How do they export the proposal? How does the review process work with yourself or somebody else on the team? So just outline all of that. And kind of pro tip here is, if you don't like writing a whole lot, again, use some AI, use ChatGPT, reach out to us. This is what we do. We've got templates for all of this stuff, and it's essentially plug and play. We figure out your process because every business does things a little differently. But either way, it's very easy to get this stuff in place, and then you refine it from there. Job costing is another one. This will tell you exactly where you are in every project and make sure you're not going off the rails and in a bad spot with cash flow and things like that. What does your on-site guys need to do with receipts if they purchase materials? How does information come in from your suppliers? How does that get into your project management software, your accounting software? How does it get categorized? If there's a mistake with the job costing, let's say you've got a project manager who's new, or you've handed this off to an admin person and they're like XTS, fasteners, whatever. I don't know what this is for. Is this framing, finishing? Have a spreadsheet where they can input all the materials that they're unsure of which cost code to code it to. And now you've got this database that anybody in the future can go and search. And now you don't have to tell them, or your project managers don't have to tell them, like, which cost code is for. I like project managers to be doing the job costing categorization because they usually know what's going on site. They know the schedule. They know if typically you want them, but there's still going to be gaps or things they're unsure of. Have a document where you can capture those things so that anybody in your organization can go back and search for it. So you don't have the same people doing the same inefficiencies, making the same mistakes, or having the same questions, right? Document any kind of little issues or things that people are unsure of in your business. And that in and of itself is like a system. What I like to implement with clients is we have a knowledge base, which is a spreadsheet with a whole bunch of resources, links, and it's a bit of a dashboard, so that if anybody in the organization finds something useful, let's say one of your framers watches this video on how to frame a wall, and he's like, wow, that was really helpful. He can take that video and put it in the knowledge base so that every future framer can go to the knowledge base and like, hey, framing a wall, cool. Like, you've got like this specific resource of training and documentation and articles and whatever that your company can rely on to help build their knowledge and training. When you start building people and you give them the space to kind of self-educate and train themselves, that's when you create a beautiful team, and your team can really like take control and start to improve the business without you. When you can step back from the business and your team and the systems continue to improve themselves, you've reached the jackpot, the gold mine, building out systems in your business. And it is a beautiful thing. Change order workflow is another one where it has to be very clear. If you're unsure of whether this is a change order or you think it's a change order, who do you contact? How do you make that decision? Again, having some sort of an SOP document for decision making for your different types of people. So project manager, they're going to be making a list of different types of decisions than your site managers or your carpenters or your admin people. So outline exactly which decisions they should be making and how to be thinking about those decisions. Sometimes you'll have to tell them specifically, like when you have this dilemma, this is the decision you should be making. Other times you just provide more of a gray area of like, this is our, principles and how we would approach this. And then they will have to make the best decision on the spot. The last one I'm going to be talking about the core operations is your financial system. So once the marketing estimating, your financials are in place, you've got the job costing and your project management. That is a beautiful core already. And 70% of your business is more or less tuned in as far as systems. Now, financial management systems, this is going to be typically a few different parties here because you're going to have your, bookkeeper, you've got your accountant, you've got you yourself. If you've got someone else in the office that's running, invoicing and things like that, then there's quite a few different people and a lot of numbers floating around, which is why this can get a little bit confusing. But prioritizing these systems as well, because sometimes people will be overwhelmed or they've got a lot to do. So make sure that your admin person knows like getting invoices out to clients, highest priority, because we need to get paid. We need that to be consistent. We need the clients to know, essentially what needs to get paid for projects. This should be done through either project management software or bookkeeping software. And this is also a bit of a pain point for a lot of contractors because typically it's your admin person. You want to hand that off, that invoicing piece, so it's not relying on you. But your admin person sometimes doesn't know essentially what's happening on site, where's the progress at, what's actually been, needs to get billed. If you're doing job costing correctly, then it's very easy for your admin person to see exactly what has all been expensed and they can calculate from there. If you send invoices out on, let's say, Tuesday, they should be meeting with their project manager on Monday and just getting a quick update. Where are we at with this project? Oh, these line items are all completed, or we're at 70% done this phase. However, you're going to invoice to the client, lay out the steps, be very specific with links, with which software to use, with how to think about it, all that stuff, and start with a big picture and then nail it down. Now, you may be thinking, I don't want to take the time, or how am I ever going to get all this in place? Building out all these systems and fine tuning them, it is a 1 to potentially more year process. With somebody like us, where we've done this before and we can just guide you through it, a 1 year, typically you can build all this out without too much difficulty. What you also want to do is rely on your team. So your admin person, if they've been running this system and invoicing clients for a year, 2 years, or forever, let them write the SOP. Have them fill in the systems. You review it. You give your feedback of like, this is how we're doing it, but I think we should probably do it this way because it'll be more efficient or more accurate or whatever, right? So the first step is like figure out the system, whoever's running it, have them document what they're doing. So they build the first draft of the SOP and then you discuss it and then you can build it from there. So don't think you need to do everything. You need to become a master at delegating the tasks in your business off to your team and leading your team to free up your time, build the business and bring in new clients and new money. Now, the next step, or one of the easiest ways to start freeing up your time, is automating your repetitive tasks. So which tasks are you doing that are, $20, $30 tasks that are repetitive, you don't really enjoy doing, and would be pretty easy to create a quick little document and hand off to someone else. These you need to get off your plate. The client onboarding and follow-up is something that can definitely be handled by admin staff or your project manager. And there's a lot of setup. So once the client is signed on the dotted line, now you need to send them, a welcome email. Maybe you send them the what to expect document, as I mentioned. You're going to have to take their estimate in the project management software, create a project around it. You may want to review the ordering or the schedule or what have you. So whatever those steps are, this should be an automated thing so that once the client signs, you're more or less can hand it off to your team. Admin person schedules tasks. So there's going to be the client onboarding checklist and what are the tasks that need to get done. So the admin person is going to have to do, any of the paperwork, the admin stuff. So they're going to have a bunch of tasks, and then the admin person assigns tasks to the rest of the team members. So if they need to assign it to the accountant or financial person to send the, deposit invoice or whatever it may be, they're going to assign a task to them. They're then going to assign a task to the project manager, reach out to the client, send them the welcome email. Every stage of your business should have that checklist, and your admin person will be assigning it over to everybody. Project tracking and notifications, there's a lot of automations that can be set up around this too, where there's automated emails that go out. Once you have a schedule and you have the contract signed, when you award that bid, there should be an automated email that goes out to your, let's say, electrician, lets them know, hey, you won the bid, you awarded it, we're scheduling you for such and such date. If you have any, issues with that date, please let us know. Make sure you put it in your calendar or whatever. And then everybody who didn't get the bid should then get an automated email. Thanks for bidding. We're not moving forward with you for this project for any number of different reasons. All of this kind of automated stuff, as well as when the schedule changes. Now, there is a bit of a science or balance to notifications, because if you give too many automated notifications, people just wipe them off their screen and forget about them. So you need to find that balance with your subcontractors or your internal team where they're getting notifications that are pertinent and helpful, but they're not getting bombarded with notifications, 1 week follow up, 2 day follow up, 1 day follow up, 1 hour follow up, all this kind of stuff. Make sure that you have a good cadence there. And then with subcontractors as well, you need to call them for sure. Even if there's automated notifications, hey, you're starting this project in 1 week, you have to call them on the phone to make sure that they're actually getting the notification and that it works for them, right? They're not going to go out of their way if they get an automated notification necessarily to reach out to you. Time tracking can be very automated as well. The basic kind of automation is to have your guys do their own time tracking. You can also use the geofencing. Someone shows up to site, as soon as they're in that vicinity of the site, it'll automatically clock them in. When they leave the site, it clocks them out. And it really creates this very seamless ability to track time. Lead gen automation, this is so helpful and one of the best things you can set up early on. Essentially, when someone fills out a form on your website, when they're added to your CRM as a prospect potential client, they should go onto your email list. They should start getting a drip email every, probably the first 1, 2, 3 days potentially, or every other day for the first week. And then maybe every week after that for 2 months. And then even longer term, they'll be starting to get the newsletter after that. So systemize lead gen, any information that comes in can easily send out emails and all this, as well as pipeline stages. So any good CRM, like the Rapid Lead one that we have, you can have multiple pipelines. You're going to have one of your main pipelines going to be your sales pipeline, and you're going to have, new lead, contacted, filled out form, qualified, whatever it may be. You're going to have certain stages or cards, and people are going to move along your pipeline. Depending where they are, there's all these automations that you can do. So let's say someone, new lead comes in, automation goes to your admin person. Call this person right away, or send them the welcome email, whatever it may be. That can be automated, as well as let's say you move someone into rough budgeting, automation could go to your project manager. Here's the information. Please start putting together an estimate, reach out to so-and-so, whatever it may be. All of this stuff happening in the background, everything starts to become fluid and everyone knows what's happening. They're going to get automated this or automated that. And it saves so much time, so much manual things. And even if the time saved is only a couple of seconds or a minute or two, it's all those little mosquitoes or little gnats that keep buzzing around and just eat up your time and drive you crazy, right? Because you've probably had this happen where you sit down on your computer, you respond to a couple of emails, you check a couple of notifications, and a couple hours goes by and it's what did I even do? I've been getting a lot done, but it's all just been little minor, annoyances that don't really move the ball forward. And this is where you can run into that trap of not having good systems in place and just wasting a lot of time doing $10, $20 automated tasks that shouldn't even be done by anybody. All right, moving on to number 3 here, team management and productivity systems. The people of your business are so essentially important, and you build your systems to help your people, to support them, to facilitate the people. And I want to make sure we know that distinction. We're not building systems to replace people. We're helping and supporting the people by building better systems. And you may think my site guys aren't going to like this. It's technology. They're not going to like SOPs and systems. You'll be very surprised that when structure and formality starts to come into the workplace, it doesn't mean it has to be a dry place that no one has fun anymore. It just means there's a way that we do things. We do things because they're efficient. And you, as the leader of your company, are going to have to explain why you need them to do things this certain way. If your guys are on site, like, why do I need this app? And why do I need to start tracking stuff in this app? I don't like it, right? You need to explain it. This is going to help you by making paychecks more efficient. It's going to help us grow as a business. It helps whatever, right? So make sure that you're explaining that. The biggest place to work on HR early on is just figuring out the roles in your company. And you're going to essentially create an organization chart. So you, CEO, president, head honcho, you're at the top. You're going to have your vice presidents, CFOs, kind of your C-suite operations. Under that, you're going to have your middle managers, project managers, sales, marketing managers, things like that, bookkeepers, admin. And then on the lower levels is going to be your site guys and basic admin, virtual assistants. Now, the reason you want this organization chart is because it tells you essentially who's taking up those responsibilities and who's fitting those roles. And at the beginning, you as the business owner, you may be in half of those boxes. You could be the chief financial officer, the marketing officer, the sales officer, the production officer, the general manager, right? You could fill half of your organization chart with yourself. And your goal is to get out of those roles and get these systems in place and then have the right people in there. So you need defined roles. Start with the ones that make the most sense and the roles that are already filled by other people in your business. And this is going to be a definition of the role. What are the responsibilities of it? Who's accountable for what? The project manager is accountable for running a profitable, on budget, on schedule project. Your crew on site is responsible for the quality. There's a difference between who's responsible and who's accountable, and be explicit with that in your roles and definitions. As I mentioned a couple of times, prioritization is so key for yourself. 100%, you need to be prioritized on what's going to move the needle, what's the biggest bang for your buck, what's the most productive use of your time. That needs to trickle down into all of the rest of the people of your business, and they need to know what is priority. If you've got like all of this stuff to do, what is the most important that you need to be thinking about or completing or getting every day? And then delegating workflows, as I mentioned, this is going to become something just natural for you once you've done it a few times. The first system is going to be a little difficult. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to have some patience with people. But as you get better and better at this and you build out one system and then another system, every one is going to get easier, and every system is going to give you more time to then better focus and put more time and attention into building out your business. Productivity planning. This is another thing where you as a business owner doing proper planning is going to be essential. And that is another skill, like a leadership skill, that you're going to need to instill in your project managers, in your admin staff, that, hey, you're not just showing up to work and going through whatever you think needs to get done this day and kind of slacking off the rest of the day. Show up to work, put a plan in place. What is happening today? Same with your site managers. We got this house to frame. What is the most important thing we need to do today? What is our goal today? Who is going to be responsible? Have a little team meeting, 5 minutes. Explicitly, you tell them, this is how I want you to run the job site. This is how I want you to plan your day, all those kind of things, and then document it. And your team is going to start to take the ball and run with it. The last point I'm going to mention for team management is the training and performance tracking. You show up on site, you're a new guy, greenhorn, and it's like, I'm here. Okay, go over there, rip apart that header or that wall, or go move this material, right? Essentially no training involved. It's just like they'll figure it out. If they make a mistake, I'll help them a little bit. That is a poor way to first invest in your people. These people are valuable. They are a resource to your company. And if you're not training them, you cannot expect them to know what they're doing or function efficiently or work as a team. You need to be able to train people, even if they've got 5 years of construction experience in some other company and they come into your company, they're still going to need to know how you want things to unfold. They're going to need some sort of employee handbook in place so that they know specifically what's happening. And that feeling for them of like, wow, this place is organized. They've gave me this handbook. I understand what's going on. Introduced me to the people on site. We went through that onboarding checklist. they've got all these like performance tracking. I like to have a self assessment. So if you've got a carpenter, how much experience do you have in these different areas? Framing a wall, installing baseboard, hanging a door, right? You've got all this different stuff, and they essentially rate themselves. One, no idea what this even is, never done it, not experienced, right? Two might be like, I've assisted someone else. Three is like, I can get this in place, but I'm not really that great at it. Four is like, handle it myself. Five is, I'm the best person in the world to do this job. So have them do a self assessment, and then the goal is wherever they start. Now okay, this person is strong in these areas. I'm going to help, like either put them in that position where they can excel, or let them know these are the areas we're going to work on because I need you to be more rounded, or I need someone who's more experienced in this. And now you can track it over time. And then from there, I like to have videos available, like I mentioned earlier, for especially those guys who are new and not really experienced. Here, go watch these couple YouTube videos on how to frame this or finish this or whatever. The videos don't have to be perfect, but they should be somewhat reasonably in line with the way that you do things. And now they're not starting from scratch. At least they understand in their mind how this should look and how it should come together. And their performance on site is just going to be so much better. And they're going to feel like you are investing in them, and you're going to have less turnover of people. One of the biggest kind of issues employees have is they feel like they're stuck, they're not growing, they're not appreciated. There's no investment in them. They're just another warm body to get some production done and maybe give them pizza, once a month at the end of the day or something like that. That's not a good working environment, and that's not where someone wants to stay long term. Now, the next systems we're talking about is quality control systems. And this is quality around your business. It's not just like the house that you complete or whatever project you're doing. It is, how do we ensure quality of experience for the client? How do we ensure quality of onboarding for new employees? So really having quality benchmarks across your organization, and they need to be standardized. What does good quality look like? What is the list of, the checklist to get into place? And I've talked about quality control checklists for on sites of like all those little things for the different phases. You should also have those quality control checklists that get reviewed quarterly or maybe twice a year to ensure that we've put the system in place. Is the system still getting used? Is it a quality system that is actually making a difference in our company? So there should be a review process as well of these different systems, because I've seen it before where we've got this system, we've got this method, it's working, it seems to be working, and it kind of gets forgotten about. And then you go back and it's like, I thought we had a system for this. I thought we were doing it this way. And everyone's like, oh, we haven't done that for months, right? Because no one's checking, there's no review process. So making sure that you have some review in this. Defects and deliverables, this comes down to performance tracking of your employees, which I could have got to in the previous one, but is part of this one as well, is doing performance reviews with your employees, not in a way of like, hey, these are all the things you suck at, get better at them, but how can we help you? How can we support you? This is room for improvement. I've noticed you are typically showing up late, or you're quite inconsistent when you come to site sometimes, or whatever, right? So lay that out and keep track of that stuff and have them accountable for it again. Like, we've done a performance review over the next 3 months, 6 months. What do you think that you can improve on, or what would you like to learn, or whatever? And then you write a couple things down, and then in 3, 6 months later, you can tell them, like, these are the things that you said you were planning on improving or working on. Have we helped support you with this? Do you feel like you've improved? And you're always moving the ball forward that way. Any problem or issue that comes up into your business is a diamond, is a gold mine of wealth and information. And start looking at the problems and issues and frustrations in your business as opportunities, as positive things in your business. So you hired a new person and they totally slacked off and the client got upset. Why did this happen? Did we hire the wrong person? Was the person not clear about what they should be doing? Is this a difficult client? Did we not set expectations right with them? So whenever something happens in the business, especially if it's a repetitive thing, you want to go upstream of like, how could we have sidestepped, mitigated, eliminated this problem or issue from happening or coming up, in a systemized way with either documentation or training or communication what do we need to do to make sure this never happens again? So start to realize that all of this firefighting and issues and things that crop up, you can get upset about it, but then turn around and say, like, actually do something about it. How can I make sure this never happens again? How can I make sure my team is 100% crystal clear? This is unacceptable. Who's accountable for making sure that this doesn't happen again? How do I tell them about it? That's how quality rises in your business. Then that last like 5 to 10% of a project of whatever's happening, it's probably an 80-20 rule, right? Where like a large perception of the quality of something happens in that very minute fraction at the end, where it's like it needs to be 100% complete. And until it's 100% complete, it looks like it's like poor quality. This could be with your onboarding process. This could be with follow-ups on sales calls. This could be putting that final little piece of trim or the paint touch-ups on the house that you just built. And that every single thing is checked off, 100% done, buttoned up, schedules in place, complete, off the plate, forget about it, move on to the next thing. Don't let those last little bits linger and those little tiny defects affect the quality of your systems. So now we're going to go over using systems across different projects and different functions of your business. So how do you keep these systems working while you sleep? You're going to lay out the system. It's going to be a draft. You're going to start implementing it. Implementing it's going to take time. You can expect some friction. You can expect your guys not to get it. You can expect mistakes to happen. Just realize that the most perfect system is going to have issues and problems with it. And that can be expected, and that's how you improve. One of the first systems I did when we were remodeling a bunch of houses, and I had two crews actually, but one foreman in specific that was a little bit more experienced, and I wanted to test out a system with him. So I created this document. I wanted them to start do job costing. This was like 17 years ago or something, when the internet and mobile phones and apps and all that stuff was not where it is at today. But I wanted them to pretty much document the things that I had estimated, how much time they were spending on them. And I created this paper. I thought the paper would be easier because they're on site. They don't even have to log into anything. Just fill it out. I left it with them for a couple of days, came back to the site, and I look at the paper and it's like half filled out. There's coffee stains on it. It's crumpled up. It's not accurate whatsoever. And I'm just like, this was a mess, right? So no matter how good of a system or intention you have, you can expect it's not going to be used properly, or you've miscommunicated something, or there's going to be mistakes in it. It just happens. And then assigning systems to your people, your project managers. This is the SOP. Follow this. If there's a problem with it, if you're running into issues, I want you to then put this forward as, how can we improve this process? Give us some feedback, because our business is not perfect. The system is not perfect. We want your input. So get your input from your people and have them be able to update processes and systems, not just like on a whim, so everyone's adding their own thing to it, but they can bring it to the team and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's change that process, or let's add that extra step, or let's clarify this documentation, or maybe it's time to upgrade this video because it's from 5 years ago and we don't even use that software anymore. So whatever it may be, right? But that's how you keep these systems working while you sleep, because are no longer operator or creator of the system. You've built the system. Now you hand it off and you delegate the rest of it and the improvement to your team, and you give them, again, some guidelines, like a system of systems. It's getting pretty meta there. But now there may be points where you are like, this is all good, Derek. I've built out systems and I've got all these little compartmentalized SOPs, and now it's getting pretty out there as far as we've got like 100 different SOPs. If you got 100 SOPs, something's gone wrong. I like to have one big SOP for different functions of the business. You might have a few one-offs if there's something very specific. But if there's a lot of complexity and you are getting overwhelmed, or you have like very large project that you're doing and you feel like your systems can't keep up, that's first off a good opportunity to build a better system or think about this in a bigger way. Second, it's also a good opportunity for you to go back to the drawing board. Not that you're going to scrap what you got, but realizing that we need to organize this better. Maybe we need some sort of coding system. Maybe we need a file system. Maybe we need a dashboard or some sort of employee login, a better software to track all these SOPs and bring everything together. Maybe we need to reach out to a company like ours so we can show you what structure we've used with much larger companies to help keep everything organized and have employees be able to access everything. So just because something is getting confusing or you feel like it's getting messy doesn't mean that you should just leave it or that it's not working. You need to start to simplify stuff. Maybe you get rid of some things, or you need to kind of pare it down or streamline it, because what can happen is you keep adding and adding and adding and adding without taking away, and it becomes this kind of monstrosity, or can anyways. And then people don't know where to find things. And that's why you need some structure, table of contents, dashboards, very structured, organized by functions, and have organization within inside all of your systems at a much larger level. One way I like to do this is we have a complete workflow, all of the systems. So project management, marketing, human resources, and then it's got all of the workflows underneath those categories. So at one glance, you can see the entire group of workflows under every function for the entire business. Everything you could possibly want is there. And then within each of those workflows, there's a link to the SOP document. There's a link to training folders. There's a link to forms that you need. Whatever you need to complete that step, there's a link to that resource, and it tells you what resource that is. So there is a way to really get everything, no matter how big of a business you have, to be able to either zoom out or zoom in. That's how you essentially work at a very complex level by bringing simplicity to it. Now, your systems are also going to have to change as you scale. Most of the systems, like your project management software or your file management, like the software type of stuff, that can typically scale up and down to any kind of level that you're going to get to. Like getting to that 10 million level, any project management software that's decent is going to get you to 10, 20, 30, 40 million. To get you up to that 10 million, 20 million mark, your systems that you have, essentially what you're probably going to need to change is more of an adding process, is that upper management layer that I mentioned before, that you're probably filling all those boxes. Now you need to have better systems that someone can manage at a greater scale. And then finally, improving systems, consistently removing bottlenecks. You want to always be asking for feedback from your employees and have a culture of, good is not good enough. We want great. And if a system is good and it's working, but you feel you could have improvement, you have ideas for something we can implement, whatever it is, you always want to have that feedback loop and that kind of openness that no idea is a dumb idea, essentially, of your employees if they're actually honestly trying to help you, of like, hey, maybe we should purchase a tool or thing that I used to work in my other business, or hey, what about doing it this way? You want all of that coming into the business, and also that communication, like, we really want your ideas. Doesn't mean we're going to implement everything or take everything into account, but we really appreciate your input. This gives your team buy-in to the systems. It gives the team buy-in to the company. And when you've implemented something that an employee has told you about, like, hey, could we do it this way? Or, hey, have you tried this? And you implement it, right away, the stock of the company in that employee's eyes goes way up. And they feel like, wow, they made their mark, and they're contributing to something more than just, building a house and getting a paycheck at the end of the day. Now, I know building powerful systems can be a bit overwhelming, but it's really important to build them. So don't underestimate them. And again, if you need my help with systemizing your company, you can apply to work directly with me using the first link in the description. These are the scaling mistakes that can trap construction companies. You've learned how to scale your business, but these are roadblocks or pitfalls that I see can cause construction companies to go off the rails, to not reach your full potential, or create a lot of difficulty in actually getting to where you want to go. These aren't minor mistakes. They're structural failures that can completely destroy your margins, your projects, and your reputation that may have taken you years to build. Even if your company is running fairly smoothly, small cracks or gaps can cause big problems or issues when you start to scale, because all of those little kind of inefficiencies or small gaps, cracks can escalate and create, major stress for you when they become bigger problems later on. So my client Chevron, they scaled to 5 million plus after fixing some major mistakes in their construction company. And these are a couple of them that they worked on, and some that I see kind of time and time again. Number one is forgetting the client. It's kind of funny, but it's not funny. But I can see this in companies, and you start to pick up on this mentality of companies that you may have done this with a subcontractor where you've worked with them for years. They start getting bigger, they start getting more projects, and all of a sudden you feel like you're small potatoes. They're not really answering your calls. Their estimates are way off pricing and they take forever. And it seems like they reach a level of success or of projects and things just get really slack. Don't let this happen to your business. It can be really tempting when things get busy. You've got lots of money coming in, you're profitable, you've got some systems in place, your team's doing well, and you kind of have this laissez-faire, you're just a little bit slack, you're not kind of showing up for work enough. Communication with clients, it's like, nah, whatever, I'm going to have another one, next week or whatever. So don't let this happen to you. You always want to have that client experience very high and ingrained in your team, in your mentality, that you go above and beyond for your clients. You set up the systems around it, but don't let that toxic kind of thought come into where it's like, they're just another client, just another number, right? And you want to be able to train your managers so the quality is always high and the experience is always high, and good communication so you can start to pick up and recognize this if it's happening in your business, and that the clients always feel like they're in the loop, they know what's going on, hiding anything, or you're not letting things slide because they're not important. That's the last thing you want a client to feel like, is they're just there to generate money for you and you don't really care about them. Not scaling the internal communication, another huge roadblock, pitfall. The team's going to grow. You're going to need to lead your team. You're going to lead your team through either other managers of your business. So you're going to have less one-to-one, less in the trenches sort of information coming to you. And communication can break down. One department's not talking to another department. You start to get silos where the site managers are like, they know what's happening on site. Your admin person, you've got your office staff, and no one's really communicating. There's none of this back and forth communication that is essential so everyone knows what's happening, so things aren't dropped and things like that. So you're going to have to outline in your employee handbook and throughout your organization, this is how we communicate. These are the regular meetings we have. We have a weekly production meeting. We've got a monthly operations meeting. We've got, maybe a quarterly review meeting with the upper management. What are those meetings? Your site guys, maybe they have site meeting on site. And then how does everybody supposed to communicate? Do they use Slack, WhatsApp, project management software? How should they be communicating? What constitutes an email? So I'm going into a lot of detail here, but you can see really outlining, this is how you communicate. This is the things you should be communicating about. These are the meetings we have to make sure everyone is on the same page, and it should be very ingrained. And that's how you create a communication culture and structure that can grow as you scale, because people are going to know what's going on. Priorities, as I mentioned before, really important. And then having key metrics as well. Is the communication between the team and clients and everybody is important, but also the communication of financials, business direction, the vision, mission. These types of things are going to become more and more important as you start to scale and grow. And you are providing that vision as a leader more, because you're not going to have that one-to-one back and forth with all of your employees as much as when you scale. Now, another thing when you start to scale is you're going to have more and more money, both in revenue flowing through your business. Your bank accounts are going to look a lot better, hopefully. Your profit, your paycheck, everything is going to increase. And this is a big risk, because now, if you make a mistake, the project is unprofitable, the project's only $100,000, you lose maybe, $5,000, not a big deal. You can recoup that pretty easily on the next one. If you're doing $1 million project and you're out $50,000, that could be a big hit to your company if you don't have a $50,000 in the bank that you can utilize to make, up for a loss. Hopefully you never have a loss on a project. But as you scale, you have to have larger reserves of cash available, and you have to have better systems in place and financial controls and reporting to make sure things aren't going off the rails. Because on $1 million project, if you get to the end of the project, that's when you know if you made money or lost money. You're in a really bad spot. You can't make any changes. Whereas if you have the right job costing in place, you're halfway through the project and you've spent $600,000 on the project so far, but you can only invoice $500,000, you're out $100,000. You know something has gone wrong, and you need to look into it. Maybe there's a way that we can close off this project more efficiently, whatever it may be, but at least you have some sort of control over the rest of the project instead of getting to the end and finding out that everything went bad. And more revenue doesn't mean more profit. So I hope I ingrained this into you in the early sections of this video. You need to increase your margins, because just going from 1 million to 2 million means nothing. It's much better to run $1 million business with a big margin for profit than to run a $2 million business where you're not making any profit. it's much easier not to make money with a larger business if things go sideways. So you definitely need to keep track of that. And then the final point I'm going to make here on the margins and finances is stay humble and don't spend money you haven't received yet. I made this problem for myself and it was really hard to get out of without even realizing it because I just didn't have the wherewithal or the checks and balances or the financial controls in place. It's very easy. You just landed a big project, you got a big deposit, $1 million project, biggest one you've ever done. And now it's like, oh, I can finally go out and buy that new truck, or maybe I get a boat, or we're taking the family on vacation for a couple of weeks. It can get really easy. And it's like, I earned this. I've been working so hard for so many years. Finally, I get a big project, or finally we got some money in the bank. If you're not running it by your financials of actually what's on paper, then you are in for trouble and hot water. Just because things are up today doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Next month, maybe something bad happens. You get an unprofitable project. Somebody gets, sick. Your main guy leaves for another company, whatever it may be. So make sure that you are spending wisely and you've got, cash reserves. Not taking care of early employees is another thing. The health of a business can often be attributed to how long the employees have been at that business. If you go to a company though, and you're like, you see someone and they've been there for 10, 15 years, you know that is a good company to be working with because the employee is obviously getting benefits and enjoys working there enough to stay that long. And the employer has hired the right person that's performing at their job and able to keep an employee that long. So if your employees are always turning over within 1 to 2 years, you need to take a hard look at your HR systems, at your hiring methods, at your compensation packages. Yes, you're going to have some turnover. There's going to be an odd, hire in the bunch or someone that moves on. But if you've done your hiring and you know your roles and you have an ideal employee in mind, there's no reason your average employee shouldn't stick around for 3 to 5 years. That should be average. You should have some that are maybe going to go to 10 years and the odd one, 1, 2 years, maybe they bounce off. It is very expensive to always have to hire and train new people. It's much better to pay your seasoned people a little bit more and give them regular raises and keep them happy than it is to always have to bring in new people. It improves your business from just the standing of subcontractors, that they have relationships, project managers, internal team dynamics, and clients. If clients have done a project with you and then they refer someone and that person can have the same project manager, or they come back to you 5 years or 10 years later, that same person is still working there, that's just a fantastic experience and another reason why they're going to refer and choose you over another company. Your early employees as well is helping them in their role, but also helping them become leaders. When you can build leaders in your organization along with the systems, like those are the two things essentially. You need leaders and you need systems, is the people in the systems. And, taking care of those early employees, they're going to have seen the business from day one or very early on. They're going to have seen the progress in yourself as a person, as a leader. They're going to see the growth of the company. They're going to be the perfect kind of people to be in leadership positions. And even if they aren't leadership, I worked with a guy who had been working with this construction company. He had been there for, I think, about 15 years. He was still a site laborer. He didn't have any leadership role, but he was still a leader in the company because people really respected him. They respected his worth. He really set the stage for new employees coming in. You show up on time, you work hard, you have fun. This is how you talk to people. This is how you do this. And he had the track record of, he knew everybody's job in the business essentially because he had been there for so long. So those are key assets and key people inside your business, and you want to make sure you take care of them and you appreciate them. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to mention as far as roadblocks is doing too many things. I've outlined A to Z how to scale a construction business here. As you can see, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of components. You need to set priorities and you need to realize you can only do what you can do. If you're doing too many things at once, you're going to be ineffective at all of them and you're going to just spin your wheels and not get anywhere. What is the most important specific task in your business? What's the most specific thing about that task that I can improve? Always be drilling down to like, what do I need to do? Often planning is a big part of it. Like get that plan in place, but like today, this week, next month, this quarter, this year, and you'll have your yearly goals. And it should all trail back down to like, what do I need to do today? What is my top priority for today? What are my top 3 priorities for this week that I need to get done on my business? Not just like get an estimate out or manage a project, it has to be like, I need to put this system in place. I need to figure out this financial controls. I need to talk to my bookkeeper about improving the way that they're reporting to me. Learning to say no is a big thing as well. It's not that you don't want to do these things or that you're looking down on anything. It's simply you're making a conscious decision in your mind. This is what I want. I need time to spend on this. If I say yes to this, that means it's going to take away from my goal and it's going to take me longer to get to where I want to be. And even if you think like, I do have time, I'm not doing anything this Saturday, I could easily take this on. Realize that, especially reoccurring stuff, that you sometimes need gaps and space in your life when you're bored. If you're kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit bored, or it feels like I'm not doing anything, I'm not being productive. And I am so much this way. I need to be checking stuff off my list to feel productive, to feel good about myself. But I also realize like sometimes I just need space to do some reading, maybe some studying, go for a walk, spend time with the family, create some space in your life and realize what it feels like to be retired, even if you're retired for 1 day or 1 hour, to not always be on the go and doing everything, because that's when you have your best ideas. That's when your body can reset and you'll be more productive for, the week or the month ahead and all these kind of things. So really learn to say no to the things that don't serve you in your life. And then delegate this list. My favorite list, I like to do lists and having lists for everything and checklists and all that stuff. But my favorite list is delegate this list. If I'm doing something and I'm like, this is so tedious, I don't want to be doing this, or this is really quite easy, why isn't someone else doing this? I put it on my delegate this list. After a while, you're going to have 10, 20, 30, maybe 100 different things on your delegate this list. And your goal is to get these off your plate. If you've got like an admin person or a personal assistant, you can often like hand a lot of these off to them, but some of them may go to other people on your team. Even if you don't have a person in your business right now that can take care of this stuff, create that list, because now when you do hire an admin person or have a personal assistant or somebody that can help you with some of this stuff, you have a list that you can go to and you can start to build that roles and responsibilities and things that they're going to do on a daily basis or weekly basis from that list. And you can start to build a process, that system, the SOP, the training video, and get all of that stuff off your list. So you just got a complete blueprint for reaching 8 figures with your construction company. This video has all the info you need, from scaling your company to increasing your margins to building efficient systems. The people I mentioned succeeded in this video: James systemizing his $5 million construction company, Rob doubling his revenue in 12 months, and Giannis, who doubled his profit margins in only 2 months. They all had one thing in common. They didn't just watch content, they actually executed on what they learned. So if you want to scale your construction company faster without any headaches, you can apply for the Rapid Result Creators coaching program, where I work one-on-one with you and give you everything you need to scale your company. But this isn't for everybody. I only work with those who are committed to scaling their company, because those are the people I can help get results. So if that's you, click the link in the description below and let's scale your company together.